Welcome, everyone, to the latest podcast edition of Reimagining Mobility. I'm here with Jose Rubio from our Fuel Cell Canada organization. Welcome, Jose, and thank you for joining me today. Tell me a little bit, what are you guys doing in Canada?
Yeah, we're a team of about 50 people, 90% engineers and scientists based in Vancouver, BC, Canada, which is a global hub for PEM fuel cell stack design. So we do exactly that. We design PEM fuel cell stacks for AVL and AVL customers worldwide.
Very good. And tell me, why PEM? Why not SOFC? I hear SOF. I hear the battle constantly, right? SOFC is, yeah, I know heat is an issue, but hey, I can put a whole lot more different fuels in it. PEM, limited. So why did we choose PEM as the solution, so to speak, or the technology for our fuel cell stacks?
Yeah, first, like probably the biggest point is PEM is completely green, can run off renewable hydrogen. So there's zero carbon in any of the process. Now, for sure, it depends on where you get the hydrogen from, but that's where we're talking about the hydrogen infrastructure, the landscape that's developing to make sure we have that fully green fuel coming in. So PEM fuel cells run exclusively on hydrogen. And in our case, we, of course, turn that hydrogen into electricity, heat, and water, which are the main byproducts of a fuel cell stack. Compared to a SOFC system, the main benefit of PEM is that it runs at low temperature. Yeah. And it is very fast to start up and shut down. Whereas a PEM system, because it needs an SOFC system, because it needs a large warm-up time, those tend to be more amenable to large installations for steady state requirements, whereas a PEM system can be very dynamic. But really, those are the two big things. It runs on complete green fuel, hydrogen only, and the temperature requirements that make one have to start up and it takes time to get running fully. Whereas a PEM can come up to speed almost instantly, really within a few seconds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So really then a kind of SOFC, probably a great application maybe for a stationary power system that once it's running for whatever, 7-8 hours until the power's back, versus the PEM is more for, let's say, mobility applications where the power demands vary consistently depending on your driving or maneuver cycle or whatever.
Correct. And the power demand is quick as well.
Yeah.
So yes, okay. Correct. We're seeing like a lot of movement in the marine space, long haul truck space. I can imagine that'll expand to some stationary as well, and there is already. But in our case, that's where we see the biggest areas being in large commercial trucks and marine.
Mm-hmm. I've read over the last couple of months several times about drones that they're talking about in fuel cell, and not just drones, meaning people, so air taxis or whatever you want to call it, air mobility drones, but also for smaller ones, so for packages. Any experience or opinion on that area?
Yeah, actually, we've been working on some of those that you're mentioning. Actually, it's a slightly different than an automotive stack. Primarily, the biggest or automotive marine stack. The primary difference between those is most PEM stacks that require really high power demand are liquid cooled because they generate. You have to cool them by liquid. Mm-hmm. In a drone or aerospace application, weight is more critical than size. Liquid is heavy, so those stacks tend to be lower power density, but running on air-cooled, which eliminates a more complex system as well. So it can be, there's certainly some benefits to that. And you can imagine, there's been a lot of discussion in like pollution generated from aerospace, like airplanes, aerospace applications. So there is a move within that industry as well to explore running like PEM fuel cell stacks.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We were just at CES and we highlighted one of from your team's fuel cell stacks. That got a lot of attention, quite frankly. Lots of people, I think on one side interested, what in the world is this box? On the other side, oh my gosh, I had no idea you, AVL, were doing this. We've been doing this for years, obviously. And this is now, I believe, the second generation that we showcased there, or third generation?
At the moment, we've done really like 3 full stack designs since we've been here. One that was showcased there was the first one that we developed. However, that's currently the one that's available on the market that we're working on main projects, but we've already advanced that to another level and started work on a next more power dense application. Although the one that you showcased is really already one of the top power density stacks that you can get.
Right.
So so we've done, I mean, the team's progressed in 5 years, 3 stack designs. That's pretty rare that you'll see in other fuel cell companies. The benefit, the reason we can do that is we work with all the suppliers. We work primarily to the A sample phase, although we do have some SOP projects, but that allows us to turn over and advance designs much more quickly than you'll see in other fuel cell companies out there.
Right. Tell me a little bit what's some of the watt per liter guides that you're trying to achieve. What's the current, let's say, on the market leading edge? Where are we at? Where do you see we can get to in the next, let's say, 5 years, based on what you know today from the, let's call it technology roadmap or ability of where we know we can shave off additional inefficiencies to get more efficient? For
sure. Maybe just to tie back to the aerospace, and then I'll bring it back to the non-air-cooled stacks. For air-cooled stacks, we see the market, kind of the top end is around 0.5 kilowatt per liter.
Okay.
We're working on a design that is, we expect that will double that to 1 kilowatt per liter. Now, for on the Earth applications, our stack that we showcased there at CES is around 4-point-something kilowatts per liter, on the low of 4.2, 4.3, 4.1, depending on it and where you run it. And this is assessed at the standard developed by the Chinese marketplace, which is at 0.6 volts. You can always make those numbers read a higher value or spit out a higher value if you don't evaluate them at 0.6 volts.
Okay.
We're doing at standard level. So that's pretty important. And this stack that is in this low 4s kilowatts per liter is one of the highest ones that are available in the marketplace. Okay. The next generation that we're working on will improve that 30, 40, possibly 50%, depending on the application. So we're talking about that number being in the high 5s, mid 5s to high 5s within the next several years. Now, you will see if you look in the marketplace and Google stack power density, high power density stack, you will hear numbers that are very high. The problem is those aren't taken at that standard level. We could make our numbers also be those if you don't take that standard level.
Sure.
So it's a bit of a trick that's sometimes used, but I'm glad there's the Chinese government has released a standard that we can all compare that evenly, and it's a fair standard. So yeah.
So you're bringing up Chinese and fuel cells. I see, or I have seen personally, certainly quite a bit of movement globally now with fuel cell and stack related technologies. Europe, a lot of stationary power, right? We see it in the US now, as you mentioned, for the mobility space. I've seen it in Asia, but not necessarily in China as much. So is China leading then, that you're saying they're setting a standard, or you're just saying this is a good standard that many people are using just because China stepped up and used it?
Yeah, I think a lot of the big, China has, first of all, more trucks, buses running on fuel cells than anywhere else in the world.
Really?
I would even say combined.
Okay.
They're more, it's probably just more quiet to our Western side. So they do have a lot of momentum, and the government has spent a lot of money to support getting hydrogen, doing development projects, demo projects to try to decarbonize the grid and the distribution system in China, which is largely based on coal. So there is a lot. So almost any fuel cell company that you look up will have at least one project with someone in China because they're spending significant amount of money to get this going.
Yeah, interesting. So going back to your team, I know we've updated the facilities. We have significant amount of testing capabilities there. But correct me if I'm wrong, we're really focusing on the stack, right? Not necessarily on the complete, let's say, power plant, but really on the stack. And that's what we want to do because we really want to become expert at the stack level as a technology licensing provider, but also as an ability to make AVL as a technology provider smarter, to not take a fuel cell stack as a black box and then integrate it into a larger hydrogen-based power plant, but really become expert from, let's say, cradle to grave. Explain a little bit on that, maybe.
That's right. When we started, what specifically sets our location apart is we are the global center of excellence in AVL for PEM fuel cell stack. That's based in Vancouver because this has been a hub since the beginning, 20, 30 years of the early technology development. So that's created a significant ecosystem within the area of talent that works on the stack, knows how to push the edges and achieve the best power density, durability, all the key requirements. So yeah, that's right. Like our expertise is designing the bipolar plates, the catalyst materials that deliver the best performance and durability. In addition to doing the design, we also do the prototyping of those parts. We build stacks, and we have a hydrogen safe lab right behind me that is able to test those stacks for performance and durability. We also provide an important service that doesn't exist very much within the PEM fuel cell world is that we can take other customer stacks and test them in our lab. So not our designs and not our OEMs that we're working for, but we can run testing as a service here at AVL, which I think is quite important because that's generally very limited within the landscape of what you can get out there. A specific case where you see that happening, it might take 3 to 5 years for you to build a facility, get a hydrogen certification to run that in your lab, and you know that's slow. Whereas you can potential customers and ones that we've actually had come through here have developed a stack. You just have no way to test that. So we can help with not just providing the facility, but trained engineers that know how to operate them, can recommend optimum operating strategies for those stacks. So it's been a good journey, but we're now like very ready to make that test lab available to outside customers.
Good. And maybe to wrap things up, if you look out 10 years, maybe based on the trajectory you've had over the last 10 years, but look over 10 years and say it's not proportionally, but disproportionately, right, increasing, where can we get to? I mean, you said we're in the mid, let's say 5.5, maybe we'll push it 6 kilowatt hours per liter. Where are we going to be in 10 years, in your estimation?
I think that's going to level off.
Level off, okay.
You know, I don't see that at most linear.
Okay.
I think it'll level off, and where it'll come down to is distinguishing your technology for durability, lifetime, pushing 20,000, 30,000 hours.
Yeah.
As soon as hydrogen infrastructure becomes available. Now that's a big part of the whole ecosystem. We have some assessments within AVL that the scope of the market in mobility is probably like 20, 30%. That means 70% of that is stationary electrolysis, generating hydrogen so that you can use it in mobility applications.
Yeah,
or
very important.
Applications. So in those applications, durability is even more important because it's just sitting there idle, generating hydrogen. I'm talking a little bit about electrolysis versus generation instead of the consumption. But that's where I think the market will go is really more focusing, instead of squeezing out the most power. We don't need an F1 car. We need a Corolla that lasts a long time. It's extremely reliable. So I think that's where it's going to end up.
So again, putting you on the spot here, I'm aware. Are you going to say we're going to get to 8 kilowatt hours, or even that's a push?
I think that's a push, honestly.
Is it really?
I think 6, 7.
Okay.
If you assess it at a standard level,
Sure.
I think that's 6, 7, maybe around there in 10 years. Because I think that market's not going to push for as much the extreme power, because we can already get there in the power.
Yeah.
Make that durable, contain leaks. I mean, hydrogen's tiny. It's hard to contain leaks. Every fuel cell stack, I think this is an important point. Hydrogen gets a lot of publicity for being dangerous or things like that. It's really much less dangerous than a liquid fuel like gasoline, because hydrogen disperses very quickly. It disappears right away and doesn't stay concentrated. But because it's so small, hydrogen, every fuel cell stack has even the tiniest little bit of leaks. Those are acceptable. It's all about making sure that these levels are contained and diluted, safe levels. So it's okay. I wouldn't worry about a stack that leaks a tiny bit. I'm talking about durability, where this becomes an issue in terms of emissions that are not safe. And there will be regulatory requirements that control those emissions levels. But it's really, again, just doubling down on that. It's the durability that I think is going to distinguish, who are in the market in 20 years, 30 years.
Yeah. And then really final question, because you just touched upon something, regulation. How, in your opinion, how regulated is the market, right? From a safety, from a testing requirement. I mean, we see this a little bit with automotive batteries, right? We're learning very fast and things getting added very, very quickly. And the next thing is recyclability. So there's a traceability for cells, requirement in Europe now active, or going to be active soon, as it relates to how do you have to recycle a battery. So that ties into now the designs that we also do for our partners. How is that in the fuel cell stack, just fuel cell stack side of things?
It's certainly the technologies ahead of the regulations at the moment. We are seeing like requirements being established. Initially, I think those requirements are more stringent than they need to be, because people just don't understand the technology. So they're kind of pushing the extreme end of it, which can make navigating that landscape a little bit complicated. But I think that'll come down as we get more knowledge out there about hydrogen. The benefits of it are understood, and people understand that it's currently in some minds out there associated with like bad things that have happened, where it's really and there's been a lot of progress in that over the last couple of years, focusing on the benefits of that. And that's where I think the regulations will follow to be more reasonable.
Right. Okay. Very good. Thanks, Jose, for your time.
Yeah, no problem.
Insightful. Really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Thanks for listening to Reimagine Mobility Podcast. If you like this episode, please subscribe and tell a friend.